There is a language not made of words, but of silence and secrecy. An invisible chain of thought that connects power to its execution, where each electrical pulse can mean the life or death of thousands. This was the secret communication of the highest Nazi echelons, a digital fortress that guarded Adolf Hitler's plans, orders, and even his mind. It was a code not meant to be broken by human hands, a symphony of mechanical complexity designed to be impenetrable, eternal, and absolute. Imagine if you could hear these secrets. Imagine holding the key not to a door, but to the mind of a tyrant, able to anticipate his every move, every strategy, every doubt. What would it take to achieve such power? It wouldn't be the strength of an army, nor the power of a bomb, but the quiet perseverance of a single brilliant mind, working in the shadows, far from the deafening noise of war consuming the world. The story we'll explore today isn't about battles fought in open fields with tanks and soldiers. It's about a war fought in silent rooms, on scraps of paper, and in the labyrinth of pure logic. It's the journey of a man who faced a 12-headed machine, a monster of mathematical complexity, and defeated it with nothing more than his wits. How did a single man manage to decipher Hitler's personal code? And why were brilliant German analysts never able to understand how this was possible? The Third Reich's promise wasn't just military, it was technological. They believed in their innate superiority, and this belief manifested itself in their war machines and, crucially, in their encryption machines. The Lorentz cipher, nicknamed Tunny by the British, was the height of this arrogance. It was a system far more complex than the famous Enigma, used for the most sensitive communications, those exchanged directly between Hitler and his high command on the battlefield. For German analysts, Lorentz's security was a matter of mathematical faith. The machine had 12 rotors, a number that represented a nearly infinite array of possibilities. The number of possible combinations was astronomical, greater than the number of atoms in the known universe. Breaking this code wasn't seen as difficult. It was considered theoretically impossible. It was the equivalent of trying to find a specific grain of sand on every beach in the world in a single attempt, blindfolded. This was the mountain that loomed before the codebreakers at Bletchley Park, the nerve center of British intelligence. They received fragments of these impenetrable transmissions, meaningless digital noise, knowing that there, hidden beneath layers and layers of mathematical obfuscation, lay the decisions that could turn the tide of war. Their journey wasn't just about deciphering a message. It was about validating the belief that the human mind, with its ability to see patterns and make leaps of intuition, could overcome the brute force of any machine. The pain of this journey was palpable. Each day that passed with the code intact meant more ships sunk, more cities bombed, more lives lost. The pressure was immense, a constant weight on the shoulders of every man and woman working in those cold, damp wooden huts. They weren't just fighting a distant enemy. They were fighting against time, against their own limitations, and against the apparent perfection of a diabolical invention. At the center of this intellectual hurricane was a quiet, unassuming young mathematician named Bill Toot. He wasn't a soldier, he didn't carry a gun. His appearance didn't betray the firepower that resided within his mind. He was a chemistry and mathematics expert, recruited for a job so secretive that he could barely comprehend it at first. His weapon was logic, his ammunition was chalk on a blackboard, and his battlefield was a series of indecipherable impulses on a strip of paper. His journey of overcoming began not with a thunderous revelation, but with a mistake. A mistake made by a German radio operator who, out of frustration, retransmitted a long message twice using nearly identical settings. This small lapse, this human flaw at the heart of the perfect machine, was the first crack in the fortress. It was the opening through which the light of understanding could finally begin to penetrate. Toot's challenge was to take this small anomaly and, from it, reconstruct the entire logical architecture of a machine he had never seen. It was a feat of purely mental reverse engineering. He spent weeks, then months, immersed in those two messages, the only threads that could lead him out of the maze. He was alone with his thoughts, mapping the Lorentz's internal structure, one step at a time. Bletchley Park was a sensory universe unto itself. The smell of damp paper and ozone from the machines mingled with the constant aroma of strong tea and cigarette smoke. The sound was a constant cacophony, the rhythmic clicking of decoding machines, the whisper of tense voices, the shuffle of feet on wooden floors, and the heavy silence of absolute concentration. It was a place where time seemed to bend under the weight of urgency. The walls were thin, but they held the world's greatest secrets. Inside, 20-somethings, recruited from top universities, carried a burden men twice their age couldn't bear. They worked grueling shifts, their eyes burning from lack of sleep, fueled by caffeine and an overwhelming sense of purpose. Every pattern they found, no matter how small, was a victory in the silent war. Bill Toot wasn't entirely alone. Although the primary work of deduction was his, he was part of an ecosystem of brilliance. There was John Tiltman, the experienced cryptanalyst who first realized the value of the relayed message. There was Max Newman, the mathematician who oversaw the creation of the machine that would automate Toot's discovery. And there was the unseen presence of Alan Turing, whose pioneering work on Enigma created the very culture of bold innovation that allowed the work on Lawrence to flourish. Support came in unexpected ways. It came from a colleague who would bring her a cup of tea in the middle of the night without saying a word. It came from the quiet trust of her superiors, who gave her the space and time to pursue a line of reasoning that seemed insane to many. It was a support built not on grand gestures, but on a shared understanding that they were all participating in something monumental, something that demanded every ounce of their mental and emotional energy. The profound challenge lay in the nature of the code itself. It was like trying to understand the rules of a three-dimensional chess game played in another galaxy, simply by observing the shadow of a single piece. Toot had to create hypotheses, test them mentally, discard them, and start over hundreds of times. Each dead end was a small death, a reminder of the improbability of his task. He described the process as like assembling a jigsaw puzzle where the pieces changed shape. Lorenz's logical structure was designed to be chaotic, to mimic chance. Toot had the vision that beneath this manufactured chaos there must be an order, an architecture. He wasn't just looking for an answer, he was looking for the right question to ask. There were moments of utter despair, weeks when no progress was made, when the machine seemed to laugh at his efforts. The war outside intensified, the news from the front was grim, and the pressure to deliver results was overwhelming. He could have given up, he could have concluded, like so many others, that the task was simply impossible. But something inside him, an intellectual stubbornness, compelled him to continue. His family, like everyone else at Bletchley Park, had no idea what he was doing. To them, he was just a government employee doing a paperwork job. Isolation was part of the burden. He carried the weight of secrets that could change the world, but he couldn't share that burden with anyone. The camaraderie with his colleagues was his only escape. The turning point, Toot's eureka moment, wasn't a scream, but a quiet insight. After months of exhaustive analysis, he was able to map out the complete logical structure of the Lorentz machine. He drew diagrams showing how the 12 rotors interacted, how they created the complex cipher. He had, in essence, reconstructed the machine on paper without ever seeing a single one of its screws. It was one of the greatest intellectual feats in history, a pure demonstration of the power of deduction and abstract thought. He didn't break the code with brute force. He seduced it with elegance, finding its logical soul and exposing it to the world. The mechanical monster had been tamed. This discovery opened the floodgates. Using Toot's model, a team led by Tommy Flowers would design and build the Colossus, the world's first programmable electronic computer. A machine created for a single purpose, to implement Toot's method on an industrial scale and decipher Lorentz messages in real time. The work of a lone man turned into a monumental collaborative effort, uniting mathematicians, engineers, and technicians in a race against time. What began as a whisper in Totsio's mind was about to become a roar that would echo through the corridors of Axis power, even if they never heard it. The legacy of Lawrence and his codebreaker is proof that the human mind is the most powerful tool in existence. And that makes me think of you, the one watching. We all face our own impenetrable codes, problems that seem too complex, challenges that seem insurmountable. When was the last time you had to look at a problem in a completely new way to find the solution? Think of a time in your life, whether at work, in school, or in a relationship, when the conventional approach didn't work. A time when you had to take a step back, ignore the noise, and use your intuition and creativity to find a new perspective, a new crack in the fortress of difficulty. This ability to reframe thinking is a superpower we all possess. I want to create something here. In the comments, a chain of empathy, a place where we can share these small victories of the human mind. It's not about bragging, but about connecting through the shared experience of overcoming what seemed impossible. Because when we read each other's stories, we realize we are not alone in our intellectual and emotional struggles. So we can connect and be inspired. I want you to comment on the key phrase. The mind is the master key. Use this phrase to begin your story, to share that moment when your brain found an unexpected path. By doing so, you're not just commenting on a video. You're adding your voice to a library of human resilience, building a community that celebrates the power of thought. Let us now delve into the tools that made this transformation possible. The three concepts of human power that Bill Toot and the Bletchley Park team embodied. The first, and perhaps most fundamental, was resilience. Resilience is not the absence of failure, but the refusal to be defined by it. It is the quiet strength that allows us to rise after each fall, dust ourselves off, and try again with the knowledge gained from failure. At Bletchley Park, resilience was the air they breathed. For every message deciphered, there were hundreds of hours of fruitless work. Entire days spent chasing false leads, theories that crumbled under scrutiny. Resilience was the ability to face this wall of frustration every day and still believe that a solution existed, even if it was hidden in the depths of probability. Historically, resilience has been the engine of progress. Every great invention, every scientific discovery, every social movement was built on a mountain of failed attempts. It's a force that doesn't shine in the spotlight but works in the shadows, sustaining the effort when the initial enthusiasm fades and the harsh reality of hard work sets in. For Toot, resilience meant staring at the same data set for months, searching for a pattern that might not even exist. It meant trusting your process even when there were no results to show for it. It was the quiet faith in your own ability to persevere through monotony and doubt, an essential quality for anyone who dares to face the unknown. The second tool was intuition. Intuition is often misunderstood as a random hunch, but it's actually the brain operating at its peak, subconsciously processing vast amounts of information and experience to reach a conclusion that linear logic hasn't yet reached. It's the creative leap that connects seemingly unrelated dots. Bill Toot's decisive moment was an act of pure mathematical intuition. While analyzing the repetition in the German message, he had an insight. He intuited that there were separate components interacting in complex but predictable ways. This intuition, that the cipher was the product of two layers of encryption combined, was what led him to separate the components and analyze their parts. This ability to leap beyond the data is what separates genius from the merely competent. History is replete with such moments. Newton's apple, Kekule's dream about the structure of benzene. These are moments when the conscious mind relaxes and the subconscious offers the answer that was there all along. Intuition doesn't replace hard work. It directs it. In an environment like war, where decisions must be made quickly with incomplete information, intuition becomes a vital weapon. For codebreakers, it was the ability to sense when a line of research was promising, even without concrete evidence. It was this intuition that guided Toot through the Lawrence maze, allowing him to visualize the machine's architecture in his mind. The third and final tool was collaboration. The image of the lone genius is a powerful myth, but it's rarely the whole story. Toot's discovery, brilliant as it was, would have been merely an academic footnote without the massive collaborative effort that followed. Collaboration transforms individual brilliance into real, scalable impact. Once Toot delivered the Lorentz logic map, a new team of experts sprang into action. Engineers like Tommy Flowers, who saw the potential of using vacuum tubes on a scale never before imagined to build a decoding machine, worked together. Technicians, operators, and analysts all contributed their own piece of the puzzle. Project Colossus was a triumph of interdisciplinary collaboration. Effective collaboration requires trust, communication, and a shared goal that transcends individual egos. At Bletchley Park, the objective was clear: to win the war. This singular mission united people of different backgrounds and temperaments, creating an environment where ideas could flow freely and build upon each other. Success belonged not to an individual, but to the organization as a whole. Historically, humanity's greatest achievements, from the pyramids to space exploration, have been the result of collaboration. It amplifies intelligence, distributes workloads, and accelerates innovation. The story of breaking the Lorentz cipher is not just the story of Bill Toot. It is the story of how a community of minds came together to transform a theoretical insight into a weapon that changed the course of history. The new reality, after the code-breaking, was one of deafening clarity amid the chaos of war. Suddenly, the Allies had a seat at the enemy's most secret table. Messages flowed from Berlin to generals at the front, detailing attack plans, troop movements, casualty assessments, and even Hitler's growing frustration with his commanders. And at Bletchley Park, it was all read, translated, and transformed into actionable intelligence. Imagine the sensation. The sound of paper tape being punched by the Colossus, each hole a letter of a secret message. The hum of thousands of hot valves working in unison. And then the tense silence as the deciphered message was printed, line by line. Words that revealed the immediate future. It was like having a roadmap of the enemy's next moves, an almost divine power. The impact was immense and immediate. The information obtained from Lorentz, nicknamed Ultra, was crucial to countless operations. It allowed the Allies to know the exact strength of German tank divisions before the Battle of Kursk, the largest tank battle in history, contributing to a decisive Soviet victory. This foreknowledge saved countless lives. In the months leading up to D-Day, Ultra was vital. The Allies were able to monitor the effectiveness of their deception operations, confirming that Hitler had taken the bait that the main landings would take place at Pas-de-Calais, not Normandy. They knew where the German defenses were weakest and could plan their invasion with a degree of precision that would otherwise have been unthinkable. For German analysts, the situation was incomprehensible. They continued to trust in their unbreakable machine. When their plans failed, when their convoys were intercepted with surgical precision, they blamed spies, traitors, and information leaks. The possibility that their most secure cipher was being read like an open book was so remote in their minds that it was never seriously considered. Technological arrogance blinded them. They couldn't conceive that human ingenuity could surpass their mechanical perfection. Toot's mind and the Colossus machine were so advanced, so far beyond the thinking paradigm of the time, that to the Germans it was as if the Allies were using magic. They never understood how, and this ignorance was a powerful weapon in itself. Post-transformation life for the codebreakers was quiet. They returned to their civilian lives, to academic careers and ordinary jobs, bound by an oath of secrecy that would last decades. They lived with the knowledge of their work's monumental impact, but they could not share in its glory. Their victory was anonymous, their contribution buried under the seal of top secret. The sense of historic change was something they carried within. They knew firsthand how the power of information, unlocked by human intelligence, could alter the destiny of nations. They saw the future before it happened and helped shape it for the better. A deep, quiet satisfaction known only to those who were in the secret rooms where the war was truly won. The world changed because of them, but the world didn't know their names. The legacy of Bill Toot and Project Colossus lies not only in the victory of World War II, but in the birth of the digital age. Their work laid the foundation for modern computing, the starting point for the connected world we live in today. A story like this isn't just about the past. It's a mirror for the present. It shows us that behind the big events, the headlines, and the monuments, there are human stories of struggle, brilliance, and quiet sacrifice. And that's why this channel exists. To go beyond the superficial and find the human connection at the heart of the story. If you felt this connection, if you believe that history is more than dates and names, but a source of inspiration and understanding, then this is the place for you. This isn't just a channel. It's a haven for curious minds, a safe space where we can explore the depths of the human experience together, without judgment and with a shared passion for truth. By subscribing, you're not just clicking a button. You're joining a community, a tribe of story lovers who understand its power. You're saying yes to deeper narratives and a more empathetic understanding of our past. Welcome to our refuge. Welcome to our community of timeless storytellers.